Hi class, today's assignment is fun. We're going to create a prototype of a website for Desert Destinations. That's a fictitious company that I've created. And I've given you all the files that you'll need in week 14 under assignment prototyping. So in step 1, download the files here. So let's get started, and I may go through this a little bit more quickly than a lot of people would like, but just download the Wimba session and stop it, if you get to a place where you got lost, and just back it up a little bit. Okay, so it plays really nice in the QuickTime player on your desktop, so just download it and stop it as you need to, and then back up and reverse if you need to. Alright, I'm going to middle click here on this prototyping zip and just open the file. It is a zip file, so when it comes up, what we're going to do is copy, just select all, and copy all the files. And then on a Windows keyboard, I can do a Windows E to open up a new Explorer window. And I'm going to put all of these files on my desktop under Dreamweaver class right there. Okay, if you have a week 14 folder, feel free to put these under your week 14 folder. Okay, I don't. I just have something on my desktop, so that's where I'm going to put everything. And what I can do is then close the zip file. I don't need it anymore. All right, you'll notice there are two folders here, Desert and Jordiculous, and then there's a third file, prototyping.doc. I do desire that everybody reads the prototyping.doc, please. And we're going to start with the Desert folder. So let me open that one up. And let's look at all the folders that we have inside the Desert folder. We have a fonts folder, images, PNG, and text. In the fonts, I've downloaded a font from a site such as 1001freefonts.com. So if you go out to the internet and search on fonts, you can find a bunch of free fonts. That's what I did, and I downloaded one, and I saved it in my fonts folder. So we'll need to install that font, and we'll do that in just a minute. Images, let's look at the images folder here. We have 3 images. We're only going to use 2 of them. We're going to use Desert Safari for the header banner, and we're going to use the desert tree for the left side of the screen. Okay, let's look at what's in the PNG folder. I typically, when I'm working with Fireworks, which is what we're doing today, and by the way, if you don't have Fireworks, you're going to need to download a trial copy from adobe.com. So you should be able to get a 30-day trial copy from adobe.com. Here's in this PNG folder, what I'll do is I'll create, when I'm working in Fireworks, a PNG folder to house all of my Fireworks files. Always know that PNG is my Fireworks files. Now you think, okay, you might ask the question, why if it's a PNG, doesn't it go in the images folder? Well, because Fireworks saves in its native format as a PNG, and I just know that anything in my PNG folder I've gotten used to putting only Fireworks files there. All right, we'll look at this file in just a moment. We'll come back to it. We have a text folder called Desert, and inside of it a file called desertdestinations.txt. And that'll be the text for our website. So let's do some prep work here. I'm going to set up the font first, install the font first. So I'm going back to the fonts folder, and I'm simply going to select and copy this Arovius Brazil font because I liked it. When I went out and searched on the web, I thought, hey, yeah, this will work well in my Desert Destinations prototype. So I downloaded it, and I've copied it. Now it's on the clipboard. And again, I can do this little Windows symbol in an E, which will open up a Windows Explorer. Sorry, Mac people. I don't know how you would open up your little Explorer window on Mac, so or where you're going to install the fonts. So you'll have to figure that part out if you're on a Mac. For everybody else that's on a Windows machine, if you go to your C drive, and then under Windows, and you scroll down, you will find a fonts folder. And if you just right click out here somewhere on a blank area, you can paste. And you saw very quickly that the font was installed. And let's go out here and see if we can find it. There it is, Arovius Brazil. And that's all you have to do is go to a website, download a font, and throw it in your fonts folder, and you're done. Now you have this new custom font. We're done with this little C Windows font window, so we can close it down. Now let's go into my PNG folder, and we're going to open this file, desertdestinations.png. Okay, in my first order of business here, I'm going to go ahead and zoom. It isn't working well for me. I click the little zoom tool and then move over the document, and I see a plus sign on the zoom tool, so I want to zoom out, not closer in. So I can hit the Alt on my keyboard, and it will change the zoom tool to a minus, and I can click a couple of times, and now I'm zoomed out. Let's inspect this document that we're working with. Okay, there are a lot of little things in here, so let's look at them one at a time. You have some text here, Desert Destinations, and this Desert Destinations text is not like normal text that we see. It's a certain style that we're not accustomed to. Well, guess why? If I look down in the Property Inspector, I can see that I've chosen Arovius Brazil, and that's why I downloaded that font, because I didn't have it on my machine before. So there's some text. All right, up here, look at that. That's an image. That's our file called Desert Safari, I believe, and it looks like it has a left fade on it, so it fades to the left. So I'll show you how. We're going to do a couple of things to this image. It's a really large image, so we'll be cropping it, and then we'll be doing a left resize on it, and then a left fade. Okay, let's see, what else? We have a rectangle up at the top. It's just a rectangle. So that's easy to do. Let's put stuff back where we found it. Up across the top we have some green. These are called slices in Fireworks. And what these are underneath them are buttons with 4 different states. Up, over, down, and over while down. So we'll be creating buttons that generate 4 different images, one for each of those states. So here on the left-hand side is a desert tree image that we've created to look like a vignette. A vignette is a picture that fades around the edges. You've probably seen old portraits of people that look like this, little faded edges. In the middle here we have some text, and I'm going to double click on this text to open up that text box. And what's really neat about this assignment I wanted to show you is that in Fireworks, inside of a text box, you can have different styles and sizes and colors of text. So I like that. It's a full function text box. And what I mean by that is the text that I have selected right now, that's probably Arial. Yes, it is, as I can see down in the Property Inspector. But this text here that says Desert Destinations, I kind of want to do some branding. And everywhere on my website that I see something that says Desert Destinations, I want it to be in Arovius Brazil font. Okay, so in this text box, I can have all these different fonts. I could also change the colors, the bolding, and so on. All of these things that you see down here in the Property Inspector. Okay, so there's my text. And down at the bottom, I have a text-based navigation. That'll be easy to create. And underneath that is a disclaimer. You can't see it very well, but when we get going and build the project, that'll be clear. And look, another rectangle down at the bottom. So this prototype website is nothing all that complicated. It's just a few little steps to get something like this built and up and running. Okay, and let me tell you the purpose of prototyping here. We're not building a full website, and this isn't really the way that you would want to build it. Okay, this would be a good start, and then you could customize it later. Or you might build this and then export some of the imagery to use in your real website. But this is just for a quick prototype for a client. So let's say you got this client who says, yeah, we're desert destinations, and here's all the text that we want on our front website, and we want these buttons, and we'd like to have a little header banner with the guy riding on a camel in the desert and maybe a tree to show the desert picture in there somewhere. And here's the text that tells you kind of a little bit about our services, that we do deserts, drops, all these other items here that are in the text. So the client might give you all the text, and he may or may not give you the images, and it would be up to you to just kind of create something for him. And you could do this, literally, this one page in about 20 minutes or less, if you're really good, and present it to the client. In fact, this is really nice. We don't have to spend hours and hours and hours or half a day or an entire 8 hours or 2 or 3 days creating an entire website for the client and then just have them turn around and say, no, that's not really what I wanted. Could you do this and this and that and change these things up? Well, then you're kind of committed because you've already created XHTML and CSS, and it's a little bit of a hassle to go in and make some major changes. Well, if you're working in Fireworks or Photoshop, another image editor, and you do a graphic prototype like this, then you could send this to the customer and let him proof it, him or her, proof it before you're really committing to anything. This is real quick, 20 minutes maybe. Okay, so that's nice. And so the purpose of this is, again, not to build a real website, but instead just to do something quick for the client to see. Let's get started on it. Here's what I'm going to do. We've already installed our font, so we're in good shape. I'm going to do a File, New. And for this particular exercise, I'm going to create a width of 800 by 600 pixels. Okay, and the white canvas color background is just fine. And it's a little bit bigger in the viewable area than I would like to see, so let's do this. Hit the zoom tool, your Alt key, and then zoom out a couple of times so you can see everything. All right, there's your entire canvas. Next, I'm going to open my Safari Pig. So, File, Open, in Desert Safari. And if I select it, yes, this is indeed the one over here. I see a preview. This is the one that I want to use for the header banner. So I open it in Fireworks. And I want to zoom out so I can see everything. So I'll make sure I click the zoom tool, and then again Alt, and click out once. I'm hitting my pointer tool here so that I don't have the zoom tool selected anymore. Here's what I'm going to do. My first step, I'm going to crop. I want to get rid of some of the extra stuff in this image. Alright, so I'm going to crop. So I'm just going to select the crop tool and highlight what I want. And if I don't like how I highlighted it, I can certainly use any of these 8 handles to drag it a little bit larger. And I think I like that. So I'm going to hit the Enter key on my keyboard. Now my image is cropped. So that's the first step. Now, go back and hit the pointer tool and look up at the tab at the top and realize we're viewing this thing at 66%. All right, so this is not the real size of the image. Let me zoom back out on it. This is at 100%. This is actually how large this image is and would be viewed in the web page if we stuck it in there now. And it's a little bit too big. If we look down at the property inspector, it's 1038 by 198 tall. And that's just really big. So the next thing we need to do is resize our image. And the way that we'll do that, I'll click the pointer tool and click on the gray area outside of the image, and in the property inspector, these buttons will come up. One of them is image size. And what I'm going to do is make sure that constrain proportions is checked. Okay, and change this bottom value to 117. And you'll notice the top value changes as well for the width to 613, and that is to keep the proportions constrained so that my image doesn't stretch or grow too wide or tall. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. The image gets smaller. Let's zoom back up on it. Okay, now I'm viewing it, as you can see in my tab, at 100%. That's decent. I like it. It's about as tall as I want it. I don't think a header banner should take up too much more than 100 pixels, and this is 117, so, tall. So I think we're in good shape here. The next thing that I want to do, click on my pointer tool, click on my image to select it, and let's drop down the Commands menu and Creative and Auto Vector Mask. What we will do here is a left fade. So the one that's selected right now is the one that I want. Second from the left on the top. A linear left fade. Go ahead and apply it. And you will notice on this image now you have this line with these two handles at each end. Here's what I'm going to do. Take the handle on the right, the square one. I'm going to drag it to the left. Okay, and that square handle is where the image starts to fade and then progressively fades over to the left-hand side. I think that is satisfactory. I'm going to go ahead and commit to it by just clicking on the gray area outside of the image. I'm done. So now I'm just going to select the image again, copy it, and come over here to my new document that I'm working on, paste it, okay, and then move it over to the right. And if you don't like where it moved, you can certainly use the arrow keys to get more precision movements than you can with the mouse. Okay, so there I am moving it with my arrow keys until it's in position and I don't see any more white around the edges. Okay, let's look at the original Desert Destinations and see what we want to do next. So I've created this little vector fade image at the top. That's great. But behind it is this rectangle. So let's do this. Let's draw a rectangle out. I'm going to go over to the vector category of tools here on the left toolbar and choose the rectangle tool. If you don't see it, you can just click on the rectangle tool and it will expose all of these different tools. The one we want is rectangle. And I don't have to line up exactly with the corner here when I draw this. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to put a rectangle right about there. Now, it's over the top of the image that I just inserted, so we can fix that by right-clicking on the rectangle and choosing Arrange, Send to Back. What we'll notice over here is that on the right-hand side of the screen, you have all these layers. Okay, and you have this first layer that is for the header image, the Safari image, and then a rectangle. So all we did was change the stacking order of those layers by sending it to the back. And there's our rectangle. If you want to, you can change the color of your rectangle. For example, let's say that you want to stay color coordinated. I select my rectangle in the document window and I come down to the property inspector, and next to this paint bucket there's a color picker. And instead of choosing the colors here, if I want to stay color coordinated, I have an eyedropper and I can sample some of the sand color from the Safari image. And look at what I get there. Very nice. Okay, let's look at the next thing that we need to do. So we've created the rectangle and the Safari image. Those two things are done. Let's put stuff back where it is. Can't select it. And next, let's do the Desert Destinations text. We're going to create this. So to do the Desert Destinations, I go back into my document and I find under Vector category of tools, I find the Text button, and I just click at the place where I want to insert my text. And I start typing desert destinations. And I hit the pointer tool to deselect my text. And I move my text approximately where I want it. And I think, no, I don't really like this Arial, so why don't we change it to Arovias Brazil, which is the font that we installed. And I'm next looking at it and I'm thinking, do I like this color? I don't know. Let's say that I want to be color coordinated. What I can do is select my text, come down again to the property inspector, and here's a color picker box. And I could choose colors from the palette, but since I want to be color coordinated, I think that I want to choose some of the colors from the sand. Okay, and if I don't like that color that I chose, here's what I can do. Come back down to the color picker, and maybe I want it a little bit lighter, so what I'll do is hit this color wheel, and maybe lighten by sliding this top right slider up a little bit to add more white, lighten my color a little bit, and hit OK. And there it is. So I'm fairly color coordinated at this point. If I don't like the size, I drop down to the property inspector, and there's a size slider. Maybe I want it a little bit bigger. There it is. Desert destinations, and I relocate desert destinations. And I'm using the keyboard up and down arrows. All right, there's my desert destinations text. Destinations text. Next, I will do these buttons. I want to do those last. Okay, so let's work on this image on the left, this one here of the tree. All right, so that's in its own file, so we need to open that up. And by the way, you can close your Desert Safari image if you're done with it. And you don't need to make any changes to it. Okay, and right now, this would probably be a good time to go ahead and save the file that you're working on. Where do you save it? Right here under the PNG folder. Okay, that's a good place. I'll call it Desert Destinations. It's already have one. I'll call it Desert Destinations 2. So now my file is saved and I won't lose my work. All right, time to open another file. File, open. And this time we want to open the desert tree. And I'm going to zoom out again so that I can see the entire tree. And I even want to zoom out a little bit more. What I'll do now is under the bitmap category of tools in the left toolbar, I want to choose my oval marquee. And if I don't see it, I can click on this button here and it will expose the square and the oval marquee. I just want to choose the oval. And watch where I start dragging. I come outside of my image to the top left corner and I start dragging an oval marquee over just so that it clears right here past the tree. So I want to get all of the tree, but I want to get a little bit past it. And I'll let go. And I see the little marching ants. That's good. I like the selection. I'm going to go to the Select menu and choose Feather. And instead of 10 pixels to feather, I'm going to do a radius of, I don't know, 80 to 100. It's up to you, but I'm going to do 80. Experiment with this. Okay. You don't really notice anything change here. That's okay. Let's right-click in the area that we have selected with the marching ants and edit, copy. Let's go back over to our Desert Destinations file that we're working on and edit, paste. And it's just that easy to create a vignette. Now I'm going to choose my pointer tool here. And now I can move my image around. Now let's say that I don't want it on top because I have this little line. I can change the stacking order by right-clicking on my image and going to Arrange, Send to Back. I don't really notice much difference. Yeah, there we go. If I move it up a little bit, I can get rid of that line. And just position it wherever you want it. I'm going to put it about there. Let's look at our original file again. And the next thing I'm going to do is create this text box here that has all the desert destination descriptions of services. To do that, I'm going to open under my text folder desertdestinations.txt. Desertdestinations.text.txt. It's a file with all the text that the client sent me. In the first half of this text, as you see selected, so I copy it, come back over to Fireworks, into my Desert Destinations file that I'm working on, and click on the text tool, and I can drag out a text box or just click somewhere. Paste all of my text. Now, my text is way too large, so what I'll do with that, I'll click on the pointer tool, and my text box is selected, and I'll come down to the Property Inspector and slide down the size until my text is a reasonable size. And the next thing I want to do, I don't like it left aligned. I didn't mean to do that, but I can certainly change that down here in the Property Inspector by clicking the left align button. This is very similar to working in Microsoft Word. Okay, now I'm going to double click in my text box and start formatting my text to look the way that it should. Okay, I like these first three lines. I think those are okay. This next line, I think I want a space here. And I want, a space between each of the services like you see here. Okay. And I'm hitting my pointer tool again. And I think, you know what? I need it actually a little bit smaller, all the text in this box. So I'm going to slide this slider down to, let's say 19. And I think that's decent right there. And I just position my text where I want it. Next thing I'm going to do is change all of the font in this text box to Arial. Okay, so maybe I should have done that first, because now my text is too large again and I have to resize it a little bit more. Let's try 17. Decent. What I'm trying to do is leave a little bit of space down here at the bottom so I can do my little footer with the disclaimer and a text-based navigation. Alright, so my 17-point font is good. I double-click in my text box because now I want to make sure that select all my text and unbold it, and then select Desert Destinations by itself. That I do want bold, so I'm clicking bold in the Property Inspector. And I want to change that font to Arovius Brazil. And I don't think it's big enough, so I will, in the slider, change my font size a little bit just for that selected text. Click on my pointer tool, and I think I'm done. The only thing that I would need to do maybe is just reposition my text exactly where I want it. There is one more thing I want to do. Double click in my text box again, and for each of these service headers like deserts, drops, oasis, camels, and departure, I want those bold. So I'm just going to highlight each one and bold it. I think I did this one right. There we go. And you don't see a lot of change, so let's zoom up on it. And that's how it would look. Deserts, drops, oasis, camels, and departure are a little bit more bold than the rest of the text. Okay, let's look at our original again, desert destinations. And we'll notice that there is a rectangle down here at the bottom. Why don't we go ahead and draw us a rectangle on ours. So I go to the vector tool set, and over here is a rectangle. And I just draw out an appropriately sized rectangle. What does that mean? I don't know, big enough. Okay, and hit my pointer tool and maybe move it up a little bit. And it's on top of my image here, on top of my tree image, which is probably fine and acceptable. It needs to be. So we don't have to rearrange it and change the stacking order. I don't necessarily like this color, so what I'm going to do is come down to my paint bucket tool here and click the color picker and sample the header banner rectangle color so that I can stay color coordinated. Okay, next I'm going to come back over to this text file that I was working with and grab all the second half of the text. Copy it and create another text box by clicking on the text tool and then putting an insertion point out here. Paste. Okay, so my text is too large. Let's click on my pointer tool and change the size of my text with the property inspector. Now I want my disclaimer to be a little bit smaller, but I actually like the size of this text here for the text-based navigation. Alright, let's do a couple of things. I want to click on the center alignment button. That's good. And now I'm double-clicking on my text box. And I'm going to change, selecting all of the text in that text box. I'm going to change it all to Arial. Okay, that's all too large, so let's undo that. Let's try one more time. Arial. And I just want to select the bottom half of my text where the disclaimer is, and that's the only thing that I want to change right now. I want to change the size. It's just too big. And that's decent. I'm going to hit my pointer tool, and with my arrow keys, move my text up a little bit and over to the right and kind of center it within that footer. Okay, if I'm happy with that, I can leave it alone. If I don't like it, I can certainly keep trying to tweak it. And I think maybe this text is all bold in this text box. So I'm going to select the disclaimer again and unbold it. At least I think I unbolded it. Okay. Now I'm done with my text on the bottom. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe I want this text-based navigation to be white. I can change it by itself in the property inspector. So what I like about this application's text boxes, again, are that you can have one text box with different font families of text and different sizes and different colors. So that's kind of neat. A lot of applications won't do that for you. You have to have a separate text box for each separate kind of text. So this one will let you mix and match. Okay, I'm satisfied with this so far. Let's go back to our Desert Destinations original file and see what's left. And it looks like the only thing that we have left to create are these buttons up at the top. So let's zoom in on them. See what they look like. These are really easy to create. They look green right now. They're not really that green. Over here under the web category of tools, you have these two buttons at the bottom of this category. And the one on the right shows the slices for the buttons. The one on the left will hide it. So if I hide the slices, that really brilliant green, you can see what the buttons really look like behind the scenes. And they're just kind of like a camo green or Exorcist vomit green. Okay, so I'm going to put the slices back on. Let's go over to our Desert Destinations file that we're working on and create our own buttons. I'm going to find a blank spot on my page to right-click on. See how I move over this image or this text box and I get the red bounding box? I want to make sure that I move to a place where I don't have a bounding box. And right-click and choose Insert New Button from the context menu. This opens up the button editor, and we want to create a button for the longest text first, because the longest text will dictate how wide our buttons need to be. And the longest text that we have is destinations. So I'm going to first start by drawing a rectangle. And I don't have to exactly center it. I can just put it somewhere out on this page. And look, my rectangle happens to be white down here on the bottom. So I'm going to change that to some kind of green, maybe like that. And if you like, if you don't want square corners, you can certainly change the roundness in the property inspector by either typing a value here where it says 0 or using the slider. I think about 50 would be a decent round rectangle. Okay? Click the pointer tool, and if you want to, Dreamweaver will help you center this graphic. It'll snap to the center of the crosshair as you move it close to the crosshairs. Alright, the next thing that you could do is click on your text tool. So now we want to add text. Oh, before we do that, click on your pointer tool again. And I want to change the size of this rectangle. Just because I've worked with this tutorial before, and I don't want my button to be too large for my page. And right now I can see just from experience that it's too large. So I'm going to try down here a width of 100 and a height of 20. So that looks pretty small, but this will look better on our page. So here's what we'll do. We'll hit the zoom tool and we'll zoom up on it so we can see it a little bit better. Next, I'm going to hit the text tool and come out here and type the word destinations. And click my pointer tool and kind of move my text to the center, and again, Fireworks will snap that text to the center. And here's a very important point and step that you need to do. Make sure that your text is center aligned. Center align it by clicking on the center alignment button. Okay, that's good. Next thing we want to do, we need to go to the next state for this button. So down here at the bottom, you have this little toolbar. And here's the next state button. So what we're working on right now is the up state. Okay. Now we're on the over state. And the property inspector changes. And it looks like the button editor is blank again. Well, here's what you can do. You don't have to create those graphics that you created on the up state again. You can just copy them with this button that says copy up graphic. So all of a sudden you have a copy here. And what I'm going to do, since this is the over state, when I move the mouse over the button, I'm just going to change my text and make it down here instead of white. Maybe I'll make it yellow. Okay? And I go to the next state by hitting the next state button. And I copy the over graphic. And I'm not going to make any changes here. Just leave it as it is. And go to the next state and copy the down graphic. I'm done with the button editor for now. So what I can do at the very top, just under the tabs, it says here page 1. Yeah, I want to go to page 1. And there's my button. And it looks like I put it in the wrong document. We'll just copy it and paste it over into my desert destination. No, it is in the right place. Okay. Thought I was on the wrong tab. Let me zoom out so we can see better what we're doing. Alright, there's my button. I can take my button and just move it wherever I want it to be and then get some better positioning with my arrow keys. Okay, now let's look at the original desert destinations. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons. So we need to copy this thing 4 more times. So I have it selected. I'm paste. You don't really see too much happen, but it did in fact paste a new button which I can just drag to the right. Paste. 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 So there are all my buttons. And let's zoom in a little bit, get a tighter view, because what I want to do is click my pointer tool and make sure there are no gaps between these buttons. So I just want to snap them right next to each other the best that I can. Oops, got the wrong thing. Looks decent. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, this is just a prototype. But see this overlap here? I don't like that so much. But I'm having trouble getting it to snap. Good enough. Those are our buttons. Now, they obviously don't have the right text on them. Let's look at what they should say. Deserts, drops, oasis, camels, and departure. We can change that easily, and we don't have to go back to the button editor. The way we will do it is by clicking on this button, dropping down to the property inspector and typing in this text field, deserts, and hitting OK or tab. Okay, the next one is drops and then oasis. So this button should be drops. This one should be oasis. And this one should be camels. Okay, another thing that we can do is if you click on each of the buttons, down in the property inspector you have a link field. If you know the name of the page that you're going to be linking to, for example, deserts.html, you could certainly type it here. Okay, in my case, I don't know what page I'm going to be linking to just yet, so I'll just put a fake link here as a pound sign. And I could do that for all of these buttons. And then you could certainly come back and change it later. Okay, I'm going to save my document, and it looks like I'm done. So why don't we F12 preview it? File, preview in browser, preview in Internet Explorer. See, that's F12. And now we can see the interactivity of the buttons that we created as you move over each one. And this is the size of the web page. Okay, so in 20 minutes or less, you could get something up for the client and just have them proof it and say, yeah, I like it, or no, I don't. I'd rather have not green buttons, but instead sand color, or I don't want backgrounds on the buttons. Well, that's easy to change. You just go in and recreate your buttons in your Fireworks file very quickly. And I'm going to zoom out one more time so that we can see the entire file. And we're done. So there's a prototype. Last, just make sure that you save so you don't lose your work. And these are being saved, not exported, but saved as Fireworks PNG files, again, in your PNG folder. All right, I hope you enjoy this. And again, if you don't have fireworks, go download it from adobe.com.